Hey everyone, it's September 21st, about 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a 4-hour chart of Bitcoin, BTC, USD on the Bitfinex exchange. So first of all, the video is not investment advice. Second of all, I did talk about Bitcoin, in a bearish tone. I said if it was able to break through the 6,500 area, I would start to change my mind. It exploded thereafter. I did have to jump on this trade like a wild bull and ride it up a little bit from about this area. But again, I stopped out with my profits about 6,700 and just walked away. I want to see how this thing unfolds. If Bitcoin maybe starts to base out or so, it may have another run in it. But based on this vertical price action, based on the vertical price action I've seen in the past, based on what I've seen in like Ripple, for example, I'm very cautious in calling this the bottom for Bitcoin. And I'm just going to give it time. Let's see what happens over the weekend. Weekends are typically negated in price action, meaning that from point A to point B, it's basically like a zero sum. So it's typically more of a headache to trade over the weekends than anything in this market. But the fact that the RSI and the stochastics are pushing up higher are very good. That's why I have these on the screen. So we're starting to see them exceeding prior highs. So things look good for strength of momentum purposes behind this move. Volume looks pretty good as well too. We're about 6.8 billion. So things look good as a potential turnaround. The only scary thing I have here is how vertical the price action is, how vertical price action is in Ripple, for example. Mainstream media is going crazy. You got CNBC writing an article that battered or beat down cryptocurrency, does 80%, 24 hours, triples in value, blah, blah, blah. Like they're really, really hyping this move up. And again, every single time I've seen this happen, it's just put the nail in the coffin for this market. And it really reminds me of the scummy tactics I've seen used in penny stocks, in my past. So as of now, I think there could be potentially more upside for Bitcoin. The question is, does it break out a 6,900 area? I talked about that in my prior video. If it does, I do think it could move higher. I do not know if it's going to have enough energy, though, to eclipse this high. I think it's just a vertical price move to potentially retrace this gap formed due to this vertical drop that we have on there that's considered a gap. Again, they don't look like gaps, but they're typically considered gaps by technical analysis from a technical analysis standpoint, when you're looking at this vertical price movement, typically it gets treated like one. Now, it's not what happens necessarily in the gap, it's how price reacts to the gap. And everyone's always looking for a fill, a clean fill, or to see what happens. They're anticipating it, but it really comes down to what occurs at that point during this gap fill. So if price cannot fill it and it starts to retrace and move back downward, and all of a sudden we start heading down and start moving down toward like this low 6,000 area, then we have a significant problem in price, as in this was just a pump to a dump. So as of now, I think there's a short-term run on the horizon for Bitcoin for the rest of this market. Ripple may have already topped out, but I do think the rest of the market is going to go ahead and push and ride along with this wave that Ripple created. And I'm already seeing it across the board, and I think it could push Bitcoin possibly to about the 6,900 level, maybe a little bit higher than that. Maybe we start to see close to about the low 7,000 range, but I'm going to be skeptical until we start to break this high with conviction and we start to have retracements that are higher lows and we start to progress in upward, like in an uptrend. Then I'll be confident in this industry. But other than that, everything I've ever seen in the past, and it's the same thing I've shared with my subscribers too, is that this market is notorious for pumps and dumps, and I've seen it time and time again in penny stocks. It's an unregulated market. They can do whatever they want. The Department of Justice launched that investigation. I said nothing was ever going to come of it. Nothing ever did. It's complete crap. This market's unregulated. There's no oversight whatsoever. They can do whatever they want in this market, and it's free reign. And that's what it reminds me of. And it reminds me of the same thing that happened in the Forex markets. George Soros had a book on it, like the Wild West. I forget what the title of the book was, but about the Wild West in the Forex markets, to where him and a few other guys were able to dominate the forex markets with basically unlimited funds from countries to do whatever they wanted, and they created havoc, and they created opportunity for themselves, and they made tons of money. And a large portion of George Soros's wealth comes from the forex trading that he did, and he talked about how corrupt it was because he was one of the corruptors along with other guys. I'm not just single-handedly pointing him out singly, because there were other investors that were even bigger. Like George Soros was like a minnow compared to the other guys behind the scenes too. So anyways, big moves to the upside. And here we are, in Bitcoin. Now the question is, do we finally start to progress higher? Finally, maybe eclipse about the 7,400 top, start to build out some higher lows, higher highs, and actually have a turnaround in this market? Or is this unfortunately going to be another pump to a dump? And in the same way every single one of them have, in the past. So again, that's the only reason why I exercise caution. I'm not here to hype everybody up, get everyone hyped. We're just trying to be as level-headed as possible. Yes, there's money to be made both ways, but obviously to make money on the short side has been more lucrative than the long side. But we'll see. We'll see if the trend is finally going to change. I do have a couple uptrend lines out there. If Bitcoin does base out, I'll still be bullish on price action. If Bitcoin starts to drop back down, waterfall off a cliff, come back down to retest this, 6,200 area, 6,100 area. Again, I'm going to be a cynic and think that prices, that's it, dumping out and moving significantly lower. And the only thing we're doing is just building up enough energy to finally slam back downward. Still, even with this powerful move, Bitcoin is still under seller domination. So that's it for tonight. Just a quick video, just to kind of recap everything. Again, I do think there's a short-term run on the horizon in this market. There already has been. Ripple has exploded. Ripple reached about 79 cents, crashed back down to about 54. That's going to be very, very erratic. A lot of that's running on hype, but right after Ripple started to run, the rest of this market started to get pumped up as well too. So now the question is, does the volume stay there? We're about 6.8 billion in 24-hour transactions in Bitcoin. If that starts to immediately evaporate from this market, I think we all know how that's going to end. So there's still a few questions out there that need to be answered, and only time is going to answer them. So that's the only reason why I do the video the way I am right now, because I think it's way too premature to even consider this a bottom. And at the end of the day, it could just be like a toilet bowl formation before the big flush happens and price drops out. And you could easily say that, okay, or that's it, and this is the base, and it's going to skyrocket to the moon. But to me, based on my analysis, it needs to break some key areas, meaning here, and also that volume needs to stick, and I want to see some retracements and some also higher highs, higher lows, and that start to form in this market. So right now, we potentially have a series of higher lows. Now the question is, can we finally get some higher highs, or is Bitcoin making one dramatic bear flag in this market? Okay, and that's the reason why we haven't broke out to higher highs. So that's another thing we have to be careful of. There's a potential bear flag formation, given this is the bottom line set. The top line set could potentially be somewhere up to about 8,300 or so. But again, we'll see what happens. I don't want to talk about that because that would be far down the road, probably going into the later this month or early next month before we start to see anything like that. Confirmation of the breakdown would be a breakdown beyond about the 6,100 area, breaking both of these trend lines and progressing down. To me, that would confirm a break of the bear flag to the downside, given we do not break to a new high. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. All a bear flag is, it can be a series of higher highs and higher lows, or it can just be a series of highs and lows, mainly lows, and then a drop out, meaning this was the bear flag. It does not always have to be picture perfect with higher lows and higher highs. It can just be higher lows and mixed highs. So anyways, that's it for tonight. Hope everybody has a great day, great night. I'll talk to everybody on Monday. And I thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. If you do like the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow.